The United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights said that President Javier Milei's government could threaten to undermine human rights protections in Argentina. In Palestine, Israeli occupation troops continue shelling different areas in Gaza, killing dozens of civilians. In South Africa, Cyril Ramaphosa was sworn in as president after being re-elected by the country's parliament. Hello, welcome from the South. I'm with the news. United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights, Volker Turk, said that President Javier Milei's government could threaten to undermine human rights protection in Argentina. Turk also referred to the suspension of policies for women and the attacks on freedom of expression, confirming that some of the decisions of Javier Milei's government put at risk the fundamental guarantees in Argentina. The High Commissioner called on the Argentine authorities to place human rights at the center of policy making to build a more inclusive society. Meanwhile, in Argentina, the judge released 11 of the 16 people who remain in detention after security forces arbitrarily detained most of the 33 demonstrators who had come to Congress to protest against the law bases last Wednesday. Judge Maria Servini's ruling came just after the relatives of the detainees, together with social, political, and trade union organizations, demonstrated on Tuesday in Plaza de Mayo to demand the release of those who remain in custody. 28 people have already been released by However, 5 people still remain detained. And deputies of the Union for the Homeland in Argentina held the Minister of Security, Patricia Bullrich, responsible for the use of by police of irritant gases against peaceful demonstrators over the law of bases. The criminal complaint was filed Tuesday by deputies who refuted Bullrich's main argument that demonstrators were blocking the streets. According to the document, it was the security forces who had blocked the streets under the minister's orders. On the other hand, the deputies announced that the events have already been reported to local, regional, and international human rights agencies and organizations both from the OAS and the United Nations. The government of Argentina reiterated on Tuesday before the United Nations its historical sovereign claim on the Malvinas, South Georgias, and South Sandwich and the surrounding maritime areas. In a session of the UN Special Committee on Decolonization, the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Diana Mondino, left no room for doubt about the official position of the Argentine state regarding these enclaves currently administered by the United Kingdom. In this sense, Mondino declared that it has now been 191 years since the beginning of the illegal occupation of the islands by the United Kingdom. She also argumented that time has in no way diminished the validity of their claim, nor modified their conviction that this prolonged dispute should be resolved peacefully through bilateral negotiations between Argentina and the United Kingdom. And in other news, as announced by the President of the Venezuela General Assembly, Jorge Rodriguez, the United States court organizing the Citgo auction has already received formal bids from bidders. In this sense, the Vitol Business Group, the largest independent oil operator in the world, confirmed that it is on the list of companies that submitted bids for the Venezuelan refinery Citgo Petroleum Corporation, illegally handed over to the United States by the fugitive Juan Guaido, and a long list of accomplices that includes Leopoldo Lopez, Maria Corina Machado, and Ignacio Hernandez, the alleged prosecutor who facilitated the looting. It should be noted that the Vitol Group has been linked to corruption scandals in Mexico and Ecuador. The government of Venezuela has strongly rejected the process of expropriation of the company Citgo Petroleum Corporation, which continues to be carried out by the United States authorities under the pretext of a judicial process of forced sale of shares clearly contrary to the law. Through her X account, Venezuelan Vice President Delcy Rodriguez expressed her rejection of the theft of Citgo instrumentalized by the U.S. government. She added that Venezuela would not recognize any type of fraudulent transaction and that the people in a great national union will defend their patrimony and apply implacable justice to those who plotted this plunder against the republic. The Chinese government also rejected Tuesday the takeover of the Venezuelan subsidiary Citgo by the U.S. government and the far right. The spokesman for the People's Republic of China, Lin Jian, clarified that his country is opposed to the illegal sanctions imposed by the U.S. government against the Venezuelan people and demanded that Washington should not interfere in Venezuela's affairs. Lin Jian said that such actions go against international law and that the forced sale of Citgo constitutes a new aggression by the institutions of the imperialist government of the United States against Venezuela. Venezuelan Foreign Affairs Minister Ivan Hill rejected the statements made by U.S. Undersecretary of State for Western Hemisphere Affairs, Brian Nichols. Nichols referred to the situation in the country as worrisome for the period leading up to the July 28 elections. On social media, X, Ivan Hill said the following: Mr. Nichols returns with his vulgar obsession to offend Venezuelans, meddling in matters that do not correspond to him. It seems that the fate that his puppets have written on their foreheads causes him more anguish than ever. Your attempts to interfere in our process will be as effective as the policies of your government, which are a complete failure. Our recommendation is that you write a post to be published when you have to comfort the defeat of the far right that you promote. And moving on, President of Cuba, Miguel Díaz-Canel, inaugurated the International Exhibition of Cuba Industria 2024. The opening of the event's fourth edition took place at the Pavexpo Fairgrounds in Havana. As part of its program, the exhibition will host the International Convention, an affair that is expected to be attended by at least 1,200 participants, including 108 foreigners from 22 countries. Cuba Industria 2024 will last until Friday, June 21st, and among its main goals are achieving greater integration and international insertion of the country in the industrial field and strengthening alliances.
To expand the use of available industrial capacities, to be able to find strategic alliances, commercial and productive, with the objective of increasing industrial production to meet the demand of the economy and the demand for exports.
Let's now take a short break, but remember you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English, where you'll find news in different formats, news updates, and much more. All the stories coming up. Stay with us. Welcome back. On Wednesday, Israeli genocidal forces launched overnight airstrikes on the Al-Mawasi humanitarian area in western Rafah, Sheikh Radwan, and the old Saudi towns in Gaza City. Following the Israeli attacks, Palestinian civil defense teams retrieved at least 7 bodies and found many injured on the rubble in northern Gaza. Houses were devastated by the heavy fire from drones, turning the Al-Mawasi alleged safe area into an insecure place. Gazan authorities continue to demand Israel to release 310 health workers subdued to torture and urge for opening an international case file to find out the whereabouts of many of the abducted Palestinian health personnel. Some Gazan witnesses of those airstrikes shared their experiences.
After a residential unit for the Abu Safia family was targeted, we recovered bodies of some martyrs and wounded and we took them to Al-Mamadani Medical Complex. Most of them were in remains and some women were burned as a result of the Israeli bombing on the apartment.
I was asleep and arrived here after hearing the strike and found out that the house of the Abu Safia family caught fire and was destroyed. There were approximately 40 people in the house.
In Switzerland, the Human Rights Council of the United Nations is discussing the Gaza conflict investigation elaborated by its experts. In this context, they are debating 6 operations linked to the Israeli occupation army, which the International Independent Commission of Inquiry denounces as systematic violation of the laws of war. Precisely, according to the UN investigation, Israeli bombs up to 920 kilograms were used against residential buildings, a school, refugee camps, and a market. For her part, Commission Chair Milei, who served as the United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights from 2008 to 2014, stated that Israel's actions are an intention and direct attack against the civilian population of Gaza.
In relation to Israel's military operations and attacks in Gaza from 7th October, we conclude that Israeli authorities are responsible for war crimes, crimes against humanity, and violations of international humanitarian and human rights law, including extermination, intentionally directing attacks against civilians and civilian objects, murder or willful killing, using starvation as a method of war, forcible transfer, gender persecution targeting Palestinian men and boys, sexual and gender-based violence amounting to torture, and cruel or inhuman treatment.
On Tuesday, Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson Liang Jian urged NATO to stop framing China for the Ukraine-Russia conflict.
China did not cause and is not part of the Ukraine crisis, and it has always been committed to promoting peace talks. China's goal and fair stance and constructive role have been widely recognized by the international community. We advise the relevant party to stop shifting blame and sowing discord, not add fuel to the fire and instigate confrontation, but rather do something practical for the political settlement of the crisis.
U.S. President Joe Biden announced 2 new executive actions that will allow thousands of immigrants who have been living in the country for at least a decade to obtain legal permanent residencies so that they can formally contribute to the U.S. economy. The first of these initiatives will allow people married to U.S. citizens to avail themselves of the remedy known as parole in place, which protects immigrants from deportation and allows them to obtain work permits if they have lived in the U.S. for at least 10 years. Through this route, undocumented immigrants could apply for residency and eventually citizenship. The White House explained in a press release that this action will protect approximately 500,000 spouses of U.S. citizens. The government of Brazil approved a timetable to reduce pollution and meet the air quality standards set by the World Health Organization. The resolution approved by the National Environment Council includes an investment of up to $30 million between 2025 and 2026 to create inventories, build monitoring stations, and implement actions to improve air quality. In this sense, the initiative foresees that air quality will be monitored by the authorities and adapted to protect the health of the population and the environment in Brazil. The Venezuelan Bolivarian National Guard maintains an active deployment in national parks and monuments as part of the protection plans against criminal groups that practice illegal mining. Chief General Dominico Hernandez Lares detailed that the armed forces are also deployed in the forest, hydraulic, and biosphere reserves to maintain environmental security. He also reminded the population that it is prohibited within the national parks to develop mining, hydrocarbon exploitation, agricultural crops in general, and forest exploitation. In this context, he affirmed that it is a citizen's duty to abide by the national laws, or else the organizations that violate the law and the national sovereignty will be dismantled. We now have a fun short break coming up, but before we invite you to join our WhatsApp community for our English-speaking audience. You can scan the QR code on screen to join directly and share the link to reach more people. Constant news coverage of Latin American, Caribbean, as well as the rest of the world. Stay connected and informed with teleSUR. Fun short break, don't go away. Welcome back. On Wednesday in South Africa, Cyril Ramaphosa was sworn in as president after being re-elected by the country's parliament. According to the Minister of the Presidency, Kumbutso Shavneni, The nation's constitution stipulates that the president must be sworn in within 5 days of his election by the legislature. In this sense, on June 15th, Ramaphosa received 283 votes from the newly elected parliamentarians of the general elections held on May 29th. In turn, the leader of the Economic Freedom Fighters Party, Julius Malema, received only 44 votes from the legislators. The inauguration ceremony brought together South Africans of all backgrounds, lifestyles, and political orientations united to celebrate Ramaphosa's new term.
In this moment, we must choose to move forward, to close the distances between South Africans and to build a more equal society, to translate the promise of our Constitution and the vision of the Freedom Charter into a reality for all. This moment requires extraordinary courage and leadership. It requires a common mission to safeguard national unity, peace, stability, inclusive economic growth, non-racialism, and non-sexism.
This Wednesday, Russian President Vladimir Putin visited North Korea. Putin, alongside North Korean leader Kim Jong-un, announced an important binational agreement. The agreement is a strategic partnership treaty of a peaceful and defensive nature, ratified by both heads of states. According to Kim Jong-un, this treaty will become a driving force that will accelerate the creation of a new multipolar world. President Putin, before leaving for Vietnam, the next destination on his Asian tour, described the agreement as a groundbreaking document. And on Wednesday, North Korean President Kim Jong-un called the visit of Russian President Vladimir Putin to his country and the development of bilateral relations a great historic moment. The North Korean leader said Putin's visit to Pyongyang confirms the true state of the Russian-North Korean relations, which have entered a period of higher development and at the same time is a great historical moment of the highest strategic importance. The United Nations has raised all alarms regarding the situation in Sudan, assuring that civilians are currently in the line of fire and with no safe places. The Undersecretary General of the UN Department of Political Affairs, Martha Powie, ratifies that an immediate ceasefire is imperative to avoid new atrocities. The UN held responsible both the army and the rapid support forces for the numerous war crimes and for instigating the ethnic tension. On the other hand, humanitarian organizations regarded what is happening in Sudan as an ethnic cleansing and an atrocious war that shows no limits. Malaysian Prime Minister Dato Seri Anwar bin Ibrahim confirmed that the official process of his country's accession to the BRICS group, Russia, Brazil, India, China, and South Africa, will begin shortly. The Malaysian government is basing its decision on the fact that the Strait of Malacca is an important transport route connecting the south of the Eastern Pacific Ocean with the Bay of Bengal, where India, Bangladesh, and Thailand, among others, have their shores. The BRICS bloc originated with the formation of the countries that define its acronym: Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. However, as of January 1st, 2024, Iran, Egypt, Ethiopia, Argentina, Saudi Arabia, and the United Arab Emirates are part of the bloc. Like Malaysia, Thailand has also expressed its intentions to join the organization. After the resounding success of the World Festival Viva Venezuela Mi Patria Querida, held in the city of Caracas and the states of La Guaira and Miranda, the great cultural festival will continue in the states of Carabobo, Aragua, and Cojedes.
The Minister of People's Power for Culture, Ernesto Villegas, along with the promotion team of the Great Mission Viva Venezuela, Mi Patria Querida, highlighted during a press conference held at the headquarters of the Ministry of People's Power for Communication and Information, the itinerary of the second chapter of this cultural and musical festival, with a variety of craft fairs.
This
second chapter of the festival will also include 46 educational activities with the participation of 77 art units of the Cultural Mission and 85 groups with 1,524 artists on stage, which will take place in the boulevard squares of the three Venezuelan states. Likewise, the cultural event will feature 13 musical groups that will delight audiences every day with open concerts. In addition, there will be workshops on heritage encounters. There will also be workshops about Corpus Christi, the saints of the month, Saints Anthony, Peter, and John, and the Venezuelan Saint Jeropo, as well as a discussion on the music, dances, and Venezuelan traditional dances.
We have come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website, telesurenglish.net. Also join us on social media, Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For Telesur English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thank you for watching.